Hi everybody, welcome to Kirk's Grocery on a Wednesday morning where Shane DeLeon, say hi Shane DeLeon.
Hey, how you doing?
Shane DeLeon and I, Mary Serby, are going to give you a walkthrough of the Stephen Glueckert Willendorf Double Take exhibition. We've had this exhibition up for a few weeks now, and this is the final week of the show. So if you're excited about something you see on this live stream, you are free to contact us to purchase it. Or if you live in Billings and you haven't seen the show, come on, run on in and see it. It'll be up until Saturday.
We're open Thursday through Saturday, 1 to 9.
Thursday through Saturday, 1 to 9. Or by appointment, that's always an option. You can always reach out and we will open it up for you if that fits our schedule. So, Stephen Glueckert, I discovered his work when he had a great big retrospective at the Yellowstone Art Museum a few years back. He's really well known for his three-dimensional work, but in this show he's featuring some two-dimensional work, and it's all around that same theme, that same famous, iconic image that either you know right away or you haven't heard of yet until this moment, the Venus of Willendorf. And the Venus of Willendorf is this piece of art or artifact that we're not sure, but some people think is 25,000 years old. And she currently lives in Vienna in a museum, but somebody told me very recently they think she may have been made from Italian marble. But there's a lot of mystery around her because 25,000 years back, that leads to a lot of, kind of fuzzy ambiance about her beginnings and that kind of thing. And Stephen Glueckert has really, really embraced the Venus of Willendorf. It's not the first time he's put her into his work, but this is the first time that he's gone so deep. So let's take a look at a few of these pieces and see what's going on. So many of these pieces are juxtaposing the Venus with something from popular culture. But we start off right here with bear. Unless somebody knows a reference to this bear that I don't know, I believe we have the Venus of Willendorf and bear. I love the way Stephen's using the media here. We've got oil pastel in these. I don't think
cattle marker.
Do we have cattle marker in these, or is it just on the other wall? Let's see. Shane's going to go find out for us.
Cattle marker, oil pastels, all from 2021.
That's right. So we're both right. It's got both oil pastel and cattle marker combined. Cattle marker being obviously something for ranchers to use on the animals, but the two media are kind of based in the same kind of waterproof kind of idea there. And I love the treatment of the Venus in every one of these pieces. You kind of get a sense of how Stephen Glueckert has gotten so familiar with her form. And then when he juxtaposes it with any other form, for me, especially spending time with all this work, you see the Venus in bear.
And he kind of pushes the narrative, I feel. So to get the shape of the Venus on this one, you can see he pushes that bear's arm out. Yeah. So it has that fold from her stomach, A lot of these, I feel, to make his point that these are archetypal shapes, he pushes that narrative by, you'll see as we go on. Exactly.
Yeah, you can see it start to happen with the bear, and with some others, you see that he is making that point visually. Something I love about this bear is the fact that, use of kind of complementary colors. I love this kind of blue outline around the bear that you can see really well at this time of day. All right. And so, speaking of popular culture, for those of you who are Godzilla fans, we've got Venus and Mothra. And again, that shape. I feel like you see it with some of these figures in the area that correlates with the feet. Mm-hmm. He brings it down to that point, which you don't necessarily have to do with an image of Mothra. And I love the almost interference he creates in the background just of this section of the show. I think there's a real deliberate, he's really deliberate about kind of unifying all the pieces, with this white and yellow line. And I really enjoy these pieces on black, because we'll see some pieces in a moment that are on white paper where he has imposed a black background that he's created. But I really like the way these figures pop on the black. And I also think it's nice, you can see kind of the pencil marks coming through.
Yeah, his work is so great because, he's a very formal artist, but he does take a lot of ideas from what I would consider folk art or outsider art, because he is a very schooled and has been in the art world his whole life. And I just love his artwork because he keeps it loose, he keeps it fresh.
Playful. Always keeps it playful.
Yeah.
And yeah, Stephen Glueckert is a curator emeritus at the Missoula Art Museum, and he is from Missoula. I believe he's a 5th generation Montana from Missoula, old school Missoula. And so he does bring together this incredible knowledge of art and study of art with this really deliberate kind of, he's kind of antithetical to that idea of being buttoned up about art. He's super stiff. He's not like that. You come on in and he'll talk to you, and I've seen his 3D work displayed and you're not supposed to touch it. He's like, come on over, let's touch it, everybody touch it. He loves to break those boundaries that are, that are pretty artificial, that can be erected around art.
We got a comment here from Julian, Jackson's grandfather, I believe, down in Texas. It says, I really like the black background also. Thanks for commenting, Julian.
Thank you. Thanks for watching right now, too. All right. So we've got 2 more right here, Venus and Minion, Venus and Potato Head. And I feel like these are probably some of the most recognizable pieces. Here at Kirk's, we have everybody from kind of deep into their retirement all the way down to about 3 years old. And Mr. Potato Head is very much, Mr. Potato Head and Bear, I would say, are the most recognizable when you get down to the youngest of ages.
Yeah, we've had some 3-year-olds in here. It's interesting to see about pop culture, I feel, because we've had a 3-year-old in here who didn't recognize any of these. And I'm like, not even a Minion? And the mom said, we don't do Minions.
She knew Potato Head because of Toy Story, yeah.
No, we've had someone else in here who didn't know any of them. There's a kid who didn't know any of them, which is interesting because I think as someone who's over, well, I'm 50, but I mean, someone who's younger, there's just a different recognition. Like you might know the Minion of Mr. Potato Head, but you have no idea who Mothra is, or Foghorn Leghorn, who we'll see in a little bit.
And I think, I've seen that working at the museum, artists are really deliberate about putting in references to visual culture, pop culture, to the times they live in. And it's interesting the way that as things shift, those references can be completely left behind. If you think about an artist who makes a pop culture, quote unquote pop culture reference from the 1860s, right? When we look at a work like that now, we're never going to get the joke. And so, so this is filled with those references, right? Venus of Willendorf, I can't imagine the security around her, the degree to which she's studied. Juxtaposed with Mr. Potato Head right there. Juxtaposed with a Minion right there. That same shape, that same visual reference.
And like a lot of art, I think, what the power of some of this work is, you might like one of them, but when you do 50 pieces or 30 pieces of the same thing and you keep drawing these correlations between archetypal shapes, like it just, as I said earlier, it pushes that narrative. It really drives home the point of, is this in our collective subconscious, this shape, this round, blobby kind of shape?
Fertility image of a woman.
Yeah, is that like part of what we like? Is that why we like these shapes of Mr. Potato Head? Is that why we like these shapes of Foghorn Leghorn? I love it. He had approached us the last couple years trying to have a show here again. We'd showed his work with Gordon McConnell. And even though I love all his 3D work, I wasn't super in love with it. And then, enough to do a whole show. But the second he showed me this series, I I just loved it so much. I love multiples. I love driving a point home.
And we're the first ones to show this, and he began this work during the pandemic and then into 2021. Before we move on from this piece, I want to say that spending time with the work, this is one of my favorite of Stephen Glueckert's depiction of the Venus. And if you have a chance to come in here, you'll also feel more drawn to one Venus over another, whether it's based on how he's captured the basic shape and form, or for me, you know, it can have to do with the texture, the layering. It's just delightful to engage with all of these. And also, especially on these larger pieces, I don't want to forget to mention the lettering. So he made a decision to write Venus under every single Venus, and then to write the corresponding, I was going to say pop culture reference, but this is another exception to that rule. This is Morte, very much in that shape of the Venus. But the attention that he pays to the lettering, I think, is definitely worth consideration. Sort of the font and the way the letters are conveyed, they're pretty bold here. And then when we look at the black and white large works, they become a little bit more loose. So all these decisions that he makes, and they run through the whole exhibition, I think really take it to another level. I'm a big fan of Morte here because pop culture references, a bear is a bear, but then this sort of amalgamation of skull and bones, or rearrangement, I should say, rearrangement of human skull and bones into the Venus figure shape is really fascinating to me. It's not like the others. I mean, look, and then the feet that I'm interested in, I mean, this is a thoughtful kind of, you know, he's being thoughtful about anatomy and how and when and where to change it, because none of us have our bones organized in this fashion. So I'm fascinated by Morte. He's added some color, but it's essentially black and white. And it stands out in this composition that's really infused with a lot of color against black. So we mentioned Foghorn Leghorn a second ago. Maybe some of you are familiar with this chap. Reference to the old cartoons that I grew up with as well. And I think of Foghorn Leghorn as a masculine cartoon. And again, versus this fertility figure. We've had discussion with an artist here who had a professor who thought that this image was based on a woman looking down into the water at her own reflection. And how, if you're a woman, if you look straight down and you imagine water down there, it would distort kind of how you see everything, how you see, you know, your breasts and your hips, and then your feet are tiny, tiny down there at the bottom. So I think it's interesting in this one, this juxtaposition. Foghorn Leghorn is always very kind of brash in that sort of 1940s kind of masculine way that we saw in a lot of culture at that time. And this Venus, you know, silent. No one knows the exact details of her history, of her words. She's often, I think, considered to be a universal image of women. And I love the way Stephen Glueckert works the white and the color
Dirties
together.
it up and doesn't keep everything clean. Real loose aesthetic.
And dirtying up those whites, right? Yeah, that's the thing. That's what makes them sing for me.
Cool. Let's move on to the smaller ones. So if you did like any of these ones are all 21 by 32.
21 by 32
inches.
$350 each. And the bear and Morte, our dead friend here, have been sold, but the others on this wall are available to you.
To purchase. Sean Chandler has popped in and said, awesome.
Hi,
Sean Chandler, awesome artist here from Montana, who's has a great show right now up at the Yam, and in the past is shown here. So make sure to check out Sean Chandler's work.
Yep, at the Yellowstone Art Museum with Jesse Albrecht. Amazing show. So hi, Sean. I'm glad you're here. So now let's take a look at this work of this wall of the small works of Stephen Glueckert. Another series within this larger show. Same juxtaposition, slightly different media. We've got pastel and gouache. And I've been teaching at the college level lately, and that gave me reason to talk about gouache. And I think of gouache as that medium that every artist loves, and very few of us use it. It's not watercolor, it's not acrylic, it dwells in the middle, even though it's more similar to watercolor in its makeup. And Stephen Glueckert said that his wife brought him some gouache paint, and he was like, I'm not really a 2D guy, and then there it is. So easy to fall in love with gouache.
Here we got another minion again, and completely different than the other one.
I love that.
Looser, you know, keeping that loose aesthetic that he just really has. I really love this Humpty Dumpty right here. Seems like it's an illustration from the 20s, like 100 years ago. It's like this old school kind of Humpty Dumpty that you would have seen in a children's book 100 years ago. I love that, this aesthetic of just a little bit dirty and then also vintage.
And I love that this Humpty is in the process of falling off the wall.
Yeah.
Like Humpty Dumpty had a big fall. It's happening in this image. And for me as a child, you often saw Humpty Dumpty pre-fall, not in the middle of the fall.
Sitting on the wall with the king's horses going by.
Yeah. And if you scroll up too, we've got Venus and Cupid, which is a reference to the Cupid doll toys back in the day. And then if you look through the little window there, Shane, you can see a black and white Venus and Cupid that we'll explore more in a minute. But it kind of shows you like a juxtaposition between these small pieces where Stephen Glueckert is really using the color like he did in the pieces on black.
Yeah, I love these two tones, the difference, the red and the yellow.
The backgrounds, yeah.
Two different color browns here. I just, the choices to use which colors with which figures is really great on this smaller series.
And I love that when he draws these guidelines, I mean, he leaves the extension of these guidelines in there.
Yeah.
Right? He could have tightened that up, but I wouldn't like the pieces as much if he did. And we come on over into
some real famous here,
70s
some
and 80s
Star
culture.
Wars, some Venus and Yoda.
Venus and Yoda. I've heard young kids say Baby Yoda. Venus and Yoda right here. And again, like Shane said earlier, Stephen Glueckert's kind of manipulating the form of Yoda so that it aligns.
Like, see the push of that hip out there to match her hip?
Yep.
Like, do we really remember Yoda with the big butt? I don't, but, you know, why not?
And the sleeves start to mimic the breasts as well. And the pointiness of the head. He doesn't do it with every head, but some of these pop culture figures, he gives them a little point on the head, much like the Venus of Willendorf has that. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be a covering or hair that comes to a point on her head.
Come on up. This is an older reference, maybe from the 40s and 50s with Bib, the old tire.
And I think of Bib as the Michelin Man. Is that right, from
I think
Michelin?
I think somewhere along the line they were very similar. I don't know the history of it. If anyone is watching this and knows the history of Bib and the Michelin Man, please clue us in.
But if you don't, it would come from advertisements as opposed to pop culture. Sorry, everybody, it's a sunny day.
Lot of glare in here.
I'm going to pull this curtain, see if I can improve our quality right away.
It's the top ones. It's the ones at the top of this.
So that didn't work, but we tried. We tried things here first. We tried
There we go. A little sideways works.
Yeah. And these are framed, which is really nice. And if you look at the frame while you're up there, they're all the same frame.
But they're homemade. He's made these. He's taken old thrift store frames, painted them black, added this little piece of flashing of metal to it to make them a little bit fancy. And I've heard people say, I love these frames. And then they look at them a little closer and they say, wow, they're kind of junky and homemade, just like his work. It's great aesthetic.
That's what he does.
Carries through his whole oeuvre.
Because this 3D work often involves taking something apart, putting it back together, often building it into a machine. And these frames reflect that. So where are you at right now, Shane?
I'm on Bob's Big Boy.
Bob's Big Boy. And I discovered Bob's Big Boy as I got older, but Shane, you grew up with Bob's Big Boy.
Yeah, there was
right
a Bob's
here.
Big Boy here in town over on like 24th and Central. Now it's where there's a U.S. Bank, I believe. I think that's where it is. And actually, what I love about this, we use Instagram a lot. And yesterday I tagged Bob's Big Boy, or a couple days ago I posted this. And Bob's Big Boy salad dressing, original Bob's Big Boy company, liked the picture. So they are aware of Stephen Glueckert's work, or at least the person who runs their Instagram page.
Wow. And maybe they're aware of the Venus of Willendorf, or now they are.
Yeah, so all these are 9.5 by 11.5, and these are $250 each. You can find all this on our website at kirksgrocery.com.
The whole exhibition is there, and you can also look at each piece of art and zoom in with our cool magnifying glass, thanks to Keith Martinez. Our website.
Upfresh Media.
Upfresh Media. And what else is up and what else is fresh? A bear. A bear is always up, it's always fresh.
Trying to get some non-glare on here.
It's hard with the glare.
There we go.
And you see it again, you see that kind of cocked hip on a bear, which luckily I haven't been standing in front of many bears, but that cocked hip, the way the left arm of the bear kind of curves around the front of the body, all that is to create that alignment with the Venus. And I'm going to say, without having been there, without knowing, that it's likely the Venus and the bear did coexist, as opposed to the Venus and Bob's Big Boy. So perhaps,
Well, the Venus still exists. She's an Austrian...
the artist who created the Venus and the bear, they probably did actually coexist. So perhaps the bear influences the Venus, we don't know. And then we've got Mickey Mouse. And Mickey Mouse, I'm not a deep scholar of Disney, but if you look at Mickey Mouse over time, the design of his character changes quite a bit from when it was first envisioned to the current times. And I like that this Mickey, I'm not sure what era he's from.
The evil era. This face is a little bit evil.
I guess now that you say that, that one doesn't seem too evil to me, but yeah, that whole, it's almost like Grimm's fairy tales, the way that there are certain things designed for children that can have that evil look, especially if you're looking back into the past at it, right? And we've got this kind of bold, confident, strong Mickey taking up the whole rectangle of the space there, and this slightly smaller Venus. Slightly shriveled compared to some of the other Venuses in the room. Venus and Mickey. And then as we mentioned, for many of these pieces, you'll see that same pop culture reference twice. Foghorn Leghorn again, totally different feet, which interests me. His feet are separate now. And so it doesn't make quite the same point at the bottom, but neither does this Venus. This Venus has her feet spread apart a little bit as well. Same kind of dirtying of that white surface that we saw on the larger piece on black, but a totally different piece. The use of the gouache, the kind of bright poppiness of gouache, I think really works here because the background is very opaque and pretty uniform in how it's applied.
I'm moving on. I'm having a really hard time getting that one in focus.
Oh, is it too much glare? Sorry, Foghorn, too much glare. How are we doing with Mama?
Oh, I love Mama. So when
you love Mama. Tell everybody about
it. I grew up here in Billings, and there used to be an A&W out in Laurel that my family would rarely go to, but I loved root beer, and we would go all the way out to Laurel from Billings, a 20-minute drive. And we would go to this A&W, and they used to have these, I guess they were molded plastic figurines. I remember them being like 8 feet tall or something like that. Maybe they weren't that big. They would be out front of the A&W, and there was the Papa Burger, which was, was like a big burger, Mama Burger and Baby Burger. And I haven't really thought about Mama Burger in many years. And then when Stephen Glueckert brought this piece in, I just loved the memory of her. She's drinking that root beer. She's got that burger. I loved the characters he did choose to highlight because some of them are kind of forgotten. Mama Bear. Mama Burger. She's just Mama is what she goes as. A&W. But he brings her back in a black and white series as well that we'll see here in a little bit. This is one of my favorites. This one has sold. The only one that's sold are these smaller ones. As we said, go to kirksgrocery.com for You know, you can find this under the Stephen Glueckert collection.
And then just talking about A&W Mama and talking about Yosemite Sam, Stephen Glueckert is also thinking about, you know, that definition of what is art. So the Venus of Willendorf, anybody who's taken art history in college, she is usually day one if it's chronological. So that puts her in the lexicon of art, but she's also in the lexicon of artifacts as well, because we don't know anything about the artist. We don't know like a time frame, an art movement to be aligned with her. And then with Yosemite Sam and with Mama from A&W, you know, this line that, you know, Andy Warhol explored and the pop artists of, you know, is something more valuable if it's made for a museum or a gallery than if it's made to go out in front of an A&W or to be part of an animated show designed for kids. You know, the definition of art, all the elasticity of that definition, and how it functions in our culture and in our society and around the world. Right here we have up in the gallery, if you stop by and visit, a statement from Stephen Glueckert, kind of letting you know about the Venus if you don't know her already, and letting you know about his process and his thoughts. And then at the bottom we've got a little bio on Stephen Glueckert as well. We were happy to have Stephen Glueckert come out here from Missoula for the opening. If you ever have a chance to be in a room with Stephen and his work, he is so wonderful to speak to and affable. I love this potato head because
It looks like he's got two big mouths. I love it too, but that mustache looks so much like a mouth over a mouth.
Yeah, to me, like, yeah, this one feels like there's a chomping motion happening between the mustache and the lips. It's a little more of a frightened potato head to me, while the larger potato head is a little more of that comforting potato head. Like, I mean, I had a Mr. Potato Head as a child. This one, I love the vibrancy of the color, and I love like just the urgency and the tension. I mean, his ears aren't even quite attached. For those of you who are familiar with Mr. Potato Head, you have to put all those pieces on, and his ears almost just aren't quite on there.
Oh yeah, I never noticed that. And you can see the two little plugs that would plug him into the holes in his head. Did he have two plug holes? I thought he only had one. I don't remember.
I don't know. I mean, I remember just enjoying rearranging his features.
Yeah.
So let's take it this way. We have Stephen Glueckert's work in the main gallery, but we have a few of them back here as well. We peeked at this Venus and Cupid through the window a minute ago, and I do find some of these pop culture images to be familiar or fun, but some of them, they creep me out a little bit. And this Cupid doll, I love the look on the face. You know, this Cupid doll, I'm not sure the exact time before I was born when it was, I believe, the toy. Just so many of them sold.
I'm trying to think. I was on tour once. I think I was in Akron, Ohio. Hey, David, Larry, Carol, nice to see you.
Hey.
And Gary Halston, good to see you.
Oh, nice to see you, Gary.
I forget. It wasn't Akron. There's some place I was at in Ohio, and there was still a Kewpie hamburger stand. So it had one of these on the roof of it.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And take a look here, because we've shifted here. Right now, we've got oil pastel and cattle marker again, but we're only using, I would say, just black. Right? Do we have any white in there? I think we're just using black. And I'm not sure if the camera's really picking it up, but like if you try to come on over here under the hand here, he's worked that black so thickly so that one, you get a really dark black, but also like around the figures and around the letters, it's worn away a little more. So there's that juxtaposition between the dark, flat, kind of black areas and the really heavily worked areas where you can see the effort that he puts in to conjure all this up for you. And especially as an artist, you know, sometimes you're paying attention to a figure or something that conveys your ideas. But, you know, when you're doing like a black background, it's just as important to put that intensity in there. And you can see that Stephen Glueckert's applied that. And next door we have another treatment of Sam, or Yosemite Sam, as I grew up with him. What I like about his treatments of Yosemite Sam is, instead of keeping the head small like the Venus, he really focuses on the hat, so that it's just the part of the face with the eyes that are aligned with the Venus's head.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I think that's different. With the others, the whole head is sort of aligned with the Venus's head in terms of size and scale. And for this one, Yosemite Sam is very, very different in that way. Well, it's great to see so many people with us here on a Wednesday morning. Thank you for joining us. We're filming this live, and we'll also have it up on YouTube shortly so that you can enjoy it forever. But thanks for everyone who's live with us. So there's Yosemite Sam and the Venus, a treatment that is not as...
So two of the people that are watching this, I believe, are in Texas. Two of like the 4 people. So right on, Texas.
Yeah.
Tear it up, Julian and David.
I'm sure it's a chilly spring day in Texas today. Nah, it's been in the 90s. Here we have the Venus of Willendorf. It's a surprise. We didn't expect to see the Venus again. The Venus of Willendorf, and here she is with Buzz Lightyear.
A really strange looking Buzz Lightyear. This head is so hollow. The eyes is just very strange.
Well, and his helmet, I mean, if I didn't know Buzz Lightyear, I would say, oh, this character must have been created back in the 30s and the 40s.
Yeah, a lot of his...
But he was not. He was created in the 80s or 90s.
Yeah, 90s
late 80s,
probably.
early 90s. And I love this. He looks as if, when you think of a movie about a spaceman who's been left behind in the void, who's been lost. Space and time are fluid. Maybe the spaceman is aging, impacted by everything out there. As opposed to Buzz Lightyear. Hi, I'm Buzz Lightyear. I love that Steven's done this treatment of Buzz. And also, just like with Yosemite Sam saying Sam, Buzz Lightyear, just Buzz. Shortens it, simplifies it. So here we have one of my favorite ones, an unusual one. It's got its own little wall, its own little place of honor here at Kirk's. And the camera is...
The gimbal's going wild, everybody.
The gimbal loves the suspense. So we've got the Venus. I'm going to step to the other side here. We've got the Venus. We've got this luscious, incredibly tactily formed black background. And I want to point out, some artists would be meticulous about keeping this white border absolutely, absolutely white.
I think he purposefully puts these thumbprints all over it.
Yeah.
I think it, his aesthetic is so dirty, so of the moment, that he just pushes that narrative again, I'm dirty, I'm messy, these are fast, these are not tight drawings, these are loose drawings. But though they are tight drawings, there's so much that's loose to him, the way he smudges all those lines.
I love the way the lines...
This
they're
little
not...
head is so weird.
That
It's like the oldest
head.
cherub in the world.
The oldest cherub, the cherub reminds me of old-timey news anchors like Walter Cronkite.
Yeah.
We've had some people say that this cherub looks like not our current president, but the one who came before. This cherub's face is so unusual, right? It's not this kind of, will you be my Valentine cherub? It's not sort of like a cherub you'd see in a museum where cherubs are kind of in the background around the scene of love. This cherub, I feel like, is very contemplative, very serious, serious-minded, even in its sort of kind of neutered, silly nudity. And it's just great juxtaposed against sort of the elegance of the nudity of the Venus of Willendorf. Fertility figure, perhaps. Venus and cherub. So come on back into the main gallery. Let's see if the gimbal will join us. Sometimes we bring our friend Gimbal. If you are here or online, doesn't matter. We have some of the catalogs from the Stephen Glueckert exhibition that was at the Missoula Art Museum and then moved over to the Yellowstone Art Museum a few years ago. And you might say, oh, that's cool. And it is. But you know what's even better? Everyone has a different cover. These are the only 2 that we have. And I believe he used
A drawing machine?
One of the drawing machines that he created himself to make these covers, so each one is unique. So when you are here, feel free to come by and peruse this catalog. It shows you more of his 3D works, his machines, some of his 2D work about museum, his games. The games were great too. This was a great piece too. So you can also come by and check out this catalog. Previous exhibition. That doesn't mean it's not a great buy and a great thing to have. All right, I'm going to stand on this side. Back to Humpty. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. And I feel like that's the moment here. We haven't gotten to all the king's horses. Humpty Dumpty having a great fall right here. What we, at this point going around the exhibition, see as that signature, consistent smear pattern. We've got the beautiful Venus here. We've got this worked through, kind of dirtied border around it. Stephen Glueckert, Venus, and Humpty. Second version of Humpty. First version of Kong. So, you know, some of these pieces I feel like we've mentioned that it's sort of a happy-go-lucky character, and Stephen Glueckert's given it to what to me can look like a little bit of a creepy treatment. But here, I think King Kong is such an approachable, lovable,
he's a good guy,
affable good guy. Kong is happy to see you. Kong is not intimidating. And instead of pushing out Kong's hips to parallel the shape of the Venus, it's here in the elbows, which I think is really interesting. Not building up muscle, building out the elbows so that these two images have this correlation. And even though the feet get small, like the Venus, these enormous arms continue down into the King Kong fists. And it's almost like the fists are what parallel the feet of the Venus. And I love that it's a black and white piece, but I'm sure on the camera you can see that that's blue. Can you see the blue on the camera?
Yep.
Yeah. So black and white, but, you know, let's put that in quotations. So I love this treatment of King Kong not holding on to the Empire State Building, but being affable and friendly. Yoda. Are we on Yoda, or is the gimbal doing its own thing?
Oh, cameraman's figuring it out still.
Gimbal madness. So this whole series that we're looking at here, these are all 23 by 35 inches.
And all these are unframed. These larger ones, the way we have them held to the wall right now, we've put them up with magnets. So I don't know if at home you ever have some paper. What I did is I took a nail and I put a little piece of a straw on that nail to create a little spacer, and then it's just held with that little magnet. So that's a way you can hold drawings. You don't have to use the spacer. You can just put a tack in the wall and hold it there with a magnet. A good way to not put holes in your drawings and to stick them on the wall.
And Stephen Glueckert assembled all these various straws and magnets for us for the show.
Yes.
And this series, again, we've got oil pastel and cattle marker. Anything you've seen of this size, black and white, is $3.75 each. And feel free to come by or buy it online or let us know if you're interested.
KirksGrocery.com, my friend.
KirksGrocery.com. Venus and Yoda. I love this Yoda. I love the treatment of the fingers on this Yoda. Even though Stephen Glueckert has a playfulness to his work, and some people who aren't familiar with art at all just come in and they're like, this is so much fun. The fun is what appeals to people. You notice that he's incredibly skilled at drawing. This is a man who draws frequently as a way to inform his 2D and 3D work. And little details like Yoda's fingers, they just reveal his incredible skill, even though he's using kind of a playful subject matter in it. And Porky Pig, we've got Porky right here, and again, I feel like this is not the Porky I grew up with. This is a Porky from a previous era, or perhaps Stephen Glueckert's interpretation of that. Interesting, like the way the nose is like almost a perfect cylinder. super tiny, sharp, pointy ears here.
Little tiny pigtail.
And having this hand with this hat breaks from the, one-to-one kind of comparison with the Venus. But I really like the way he's still utilizing that Venus space. He's playing with it, he's distorting it, he's making a comment on it.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite pieces in the show that I've thought about buying for myself is right behind it. It is Venus and Porky. Oh, hello, Gimbal. No, that's outside. Oh, there we go. This Venus and Porky, obviously from the series we saw a minute ago with the gouache paint. But this Porky, similar in some ways in treatment, but I feel like there's a totally different feeling. The use of the color. You know, we've got multiple colors in here, colors I wouldn't always associate with Porky. And again, the way he uses the, I'm going to call it the Venus space, choosing to break out of the Venus space with the hat. And it's fascinating. And in this one, you know, they're almost the same color, the Venus skin and Porky's skin. So
I had to put LB in there for a second.
Oh, LB. Oh, yeah. Usually it's LB's dinner time. We do a live stream. LB, say hi to everybody. Today's the time of day when LB likes to nap and enjoy quiet times, as opposed to our evening live streams when he is spunky and vivacious. Okay. Before we reveal this final wall, let's do Mickey and Big Boy over here. Mickey Mouse again. Similar treatment to Mickey Mouse this time in the shape. I think a little bit more of a jovial Mickey, and I love this sort of shading and overlapping on this side of the figure. As if creating shadow, but not at the same time for me. And the ears. I love the ears in this, and love the way he's worked the ears to create the darkness and the light. Really like rough and rugged. Meanwhile, the Venus is very pristine, I think, compared to this particular Mickey. Mm. And back down to Bob's Big Boy. And Bob's Big Boy, kind of like I said about Yosemite Sam and Porky Pig holding the hat, Bob's got his burger. His burger goes right out of the frame of the image.
Who needs a whole burger?
Who needs a whole burger? Who needs that top bun? It's half gluten-free.
This half gluten-free Big Boy.
Half gluten-free burger with just one bun. You know, and that choice of cocking the head to the side. But again, we've got this elbow that comes out, this pelvis that comes out, so it rounds. Bob's Big Boy and the Venus of Willendorf. So we've almost concluded our tour of Stephen Glueckert, Willendorf double take. Let's look at our very front wall, which we often do first. But today, we're going to do it last. We've got LB here, which is nice. Stephen Glueckert, Willendorf double take. These are the two pieces we selected for people to see as they come right in the door. One is Venus and Bib. And I think what's nice about Bib is there really is...
It's the same shape, almost exactly.
Yeah, it underlines that one undertone of the show. Look at the similarity in this overall shape and how it has echoed across an enormous period of time for us as human beings. And look at how beautifully he's worked this entire piece as a whole. And then when we come down, as Shane said,
Mama.
Shane loves that Stephen Glueckert included Mama.
Yeah, I love this. She's just, you know, like a mom. She's comforting with her burger and root beer. Man, I want a root beer. When's the last time you had a root beer?
Look at that. That's what A&W made her for. She makes you want a root beer by A&W. And then look at how he treated the letters here, just because these are quite different from some of the others. Rough with these tight lines mixed in with the rough use of the pastel as well. You know, every single element of these is very well considered by Stephen Glueckert to be successful. So, We've taken a look at the entire exhibition, unless we have any questions from the audience that came in earlier or now.
Just a bunch of highs, some comments. It is 91 and rising down there in Houston with David Larry Carroll, my friend down there. He works at a Super Happy Funland, a very incredible place. Hey, too bad there's not any Raggedy Ann and Andy's in this. There's quite a collection of Raggedy Ann and Andy's down there at Super Happy Funland with David Larry Carroll.
Yeah, it does make you think about who's missing, right? I mean, he can't capture every possible pop culture icon, but like you could easily have Raggedy Ann or Raggedy Andy in this, right? And we had an open drawing, and people were drawing various other things. I was drawing Venus and Buttercup from the Powerpuff Girls, and then Venus and Venus Williams, the tennis player, right? There's so much you can juxtapose. It gets you thinking about it. Thanks for watching from down in Texas at the...
Yeah, he just said thanks for sharing. Great to have you on here, David. I'll give you a call soon or send you some texts. I'm glad you watched this with us.
And so, yeah, and just for YouTube and for posterity, it is currently May 2022, last week of Stephen Glueckert Willendorf double take. And thank you from Kirk's Grocery, from Shane DeLeon, and me, and this guy. Have a great rest of... Whoa, Gibble can't handle that much dog. There's LB. Have a great rest of your day.
See y'all.